welcome grade 11s to our life sciences show at Learn Extra Live. I'm finally back. I haven't been here forever. I think it's been a month already. So Cheryl and I haven't even seen each other in quite a long time. But not to stress, guys, I will be here for you. But first, I need to give a shout out to one of my best friends, Amulka. It's the first time she's watching because she's been so busy with university. So a shout out to you, and I love you very much, my bestie. Anyway, back to what we're actually here for. Cheryl, please tell us what we're doing today.
Welcome, grade 11s. We're going to be doing gaseous exchange today, and we're very happy that it's a word that Megan can now pronounce tonight.
I can't say circulatory.
Having a few issues earlier.
It was sad. But at least I can say this word now, so I'm sure we'll be much, much better off. So I'm going to send you to our fantastic board.
Thank you so much.
And welcome, grade 11s. I know I haven't been here in quite a while. So I'm going to quickly just recap on all the things you need to know. First off, Facebook page. That's where I'm going to be for this whole hour with you. And Cheryl and I will answer all your questions. So facebook.com/learnextra or Twitter @learnextra. But if you want to be really, really nerdy, and which is very good, by the way, you sit in front of your TV and you have all the notes printed out in front of you, and that you can catch on mindset.co.za/learnextra. But I will post the fast links up for you, so nothing to stress about. And don't forget, this is proudly sponsored by Macmillan. So, with that said, I'm going to give you over to Cheryl, and she's going to take us through Gaseous Exchange. I'm so happy I can say that.
Well done, Megan. We're so proud of you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. I trust that you had a wonderful, restful holiday, and you've been back in a few days, and I think you already feel like it's time to go back on holiday. I know I'm exhausted by about 12 o'clock. I feel that I need to go and have a sleep, but we can't. Grade 11, so important this year. We need to make sure that we just keep going with the pace. Okay, today we're going to be looking at gaseous exchange. All right, if you've looked at the series that we've gone through, all right, you need to see them in the whole box. We started off looking at photosynthesis, where we made oxygen, all right, and we produced food. And then we looked at digestion and nutrition, where we took that food that the plants made and we broke it down into smaller particles. And then we looked at cellular respiration, where the food that we digested, we needed to use to make energy. Okay, which then will lead us to our next step. You see, you need to go from one to the other, and that is our gaseous exchange system. That oxygen that we need for cellular respiration, we need to be able to get it into our bodies. So that's what we're going to look at. How are we going to get that oxygen in so we can the cells can use it for cellular respiration? But remember, cellular respiration makes carbon dioxide, and we need to get that out because that's bad. No, we don't want that in our body. We need to be able to get that out. So let's start just having a quick recap. All right, those of you who do follow the notes, you'll see the notes are very similar as to what I have on the board. And that when you're looking what you need to study, all right, those are the concepts. You need to look at what is gaseous exchange, all right? Each thing that we go through, you almost have an objective, like a tick box. Do I know this? Do I know this? Do I know this? And those are the steps that we're going to follow tonight. Okay, the first thing, as I said, very important. What is gaseous exchange? What do we need? We need to bring oxygen into, doesn't matter, all living things need oxygen, right? So they're all going to need to be able to get oxygen in for cellular respiration, and they're going to need to get oxygen out. Now, when we use the word gaseous exchange system, sometimes you hear of the term respiratory system, all right? Then we talk about breathing. When we talk about cellular respiration, lots of you say it's breathing, all right? But it's not. We need to get our concepts right from the beginning. So have a look here quickly on the board. All right. When we have a look, going to way too far. These three concepts are very important. I'm going to, always my favorite, choosing a color. Okay. Breathing, gaseous exchange, and cellular respiration. Each of them mean totally different things. Okay. The first one, breathing. That is the physical process of inhalation, taking oxygen in, and exhalation, getting carbon dioxide out. All right? So it's got nothing to do with gaseous exchange or anything yet. So breathing, physical process, what you're doing. All right? Bringing that nice deep breath, all right, and then relaxing. Gaseous exchange is once you've breathed in that oxygen And for us, we're going to obviously look at the lungs. When it's into the lungs, we breathe it in for a reason, because we need to get it through to the cells, all right? And that is where we're going to have exchange. From the lungs, we need to get that oxygen into the blood. But what's in the blood? The carbon dioxide. So that's why we need to have an exchange. Oxygen must go to our cells, all right? And the carbon dioxide that comes from our cells, we need to get out. Hence the term a gaseous exchange. Exchange system means, all right, one must get something and the other one must give something. The third term is cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is when we produce energy. And when we produce energy, remember when you did cellular respiration, those 3 cycles, all right, what did we need in order for us to produce the maximum amount of energy? We needed ATP. To make ATP, we needed oxygen. All right, very important. Right? Cellular respiration, aerobic respiration. Okay, so those 3 terms, you need to make sure that you are aware. Breathing, physical process, gaseous exchange, all right, at lungs and at cells when oxygen and carbon dioxide physically, all right, diffuse from one to another. And lastly, cellular respiration, where we use that oxygen that has been brought in, and what do? We make energy and we release carbon dioxide. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay. You need to know this. Those of you who've watched me before, those of you that I teach, right, you will note one phrase that I constantly repeat is that the structure must relate to its function. Okay? So, what do we need to bring oxygen in. Now remember, okay, your body needs to be designed for things to happen as easily and as quickly as possible. Oxygen is essential to the body. So making it difficult for oxygen to come in and carbon dioxide to go out would be senseless. All right? So when it comes to when we're going to look at the different organs of the gaseous exchange. What is so important, all right, is to realize this in the back of your mind. When we look at each one, okay, we need to think, okay, in order for gaseous exchange to occur properly, all right, nice and quickly, needs to happen fast, at its maximum, optimal, any kind of word that you want to use, all right, it needs to have the following characteristics. I'm going to just read them all for you first, and then when we start to look at the anatomy, I'm going to come back and say, remember it had to be this, remember it had to be that, almost like, again, your tick box. Okay, first thing, large. What do you want? Okay, you want something, you want oxygen. Surely, the more oxygen you want, all right, the larger the surface area, the better. Okay, I'm not going to explain it now because if I say words like alveoli and that, you're going to get a little bit confused. So I want you to just remember, in your tick box, there we've got a bullet. Large. Okay, thin and permeable. Right, often I say to my kids, quite simple. If you have a doorway and I put maybe cling wrap, like the same wrap your sandwiches in. Put that in one doorway and the other one I put wood. Right? Now you have to go through that doorway. Which would be the easiest? The cling wrap, because you'd be able to tear it. Why? Quite simple, it's thin. Permeable means you can get things through. Now it would be illogical if you were breathing all this oxygen in and it took so long to go through these big, fat layers of cells. What do you want? You want oxygen to come in. Through layer, there, whammo, there it goes. Okay, so you want it to be thin. The thinner it is, the quicker it can go. The quicker it can go, the more oxygen you can get in, and the more carbon dioxide you can get out. Okay, checkbox number 2. Okay, next one, moist. Gases must be transported in solution. What do I mean by that? Gases must be dissolved. Oxygen travels by being dissolved in water. So the lining of your lungs, the blood that it's transported, the tissue fluid around the cells, all of it, water. The gases will dissolve in water and then can move. Okay, so we've got 3 tick boxes so far. 4 tick boxes, all right? Well ventilated. That means it must be easy for you to get oxygen in and oxygen out. Think about it when your nose is blocked, all right? Or when you're all sick and you're fluey and whatnot. All of a sudden, all those membranes are all blocked and you're cloggy. And what happens? You battle to breathe, all right? You're battling to breathe because all of a sudden, the air can't flow through in properly, right? Or if you've got mucus lining around your lungs, the air can't get in or can't get out, and all of a sudden you have a problem with ventilation. So the easier you can breathe, the better it's going to be for you. Okay, that's the next point, right? Guys, oxygen comes into the body. It needs to be transported. All right, it's like waiting at a taxi rank and there's no taxis there to pick you up. That's exactly what happens, right? What happens? You need to be transported. When we look at the structure, what's our transport system? Our blood, okay? Blood is going to be essential to transport, right, all of our nutrients, either to the cells or back again. Then the last one, our lungs are important. Breathing is important. So we need to make sure that it is well protected. We're going to have a look at different kinds of organisms just now, and you'll see. Our lungs, what have we got? We've got the rib cage. In between the rib cage, we've got our intercostal muscles, which is meat, right? But our lungs are well protected. So it will obviously stop us from, we can get injured, but to actually stop you from getting any major injury. Right, so now the next thing that we're going to look at, okay, you're saying, oh, we're not doing plants. Yes, we're not doing plants, but you need to understand that it's not only we're talking about human gaseous exchange, that all other organs also, all other organisms, all right, are also need to be able to have that process of absorption, of getting in the oxygen and releasing the carbon dioxide. You should all be familiar with the diagram of the leaf. When you did photosynthesis, you should have, again, had the dorsiventral leaf. Remember, dorsiventral, different at the top and the bottom. And what's our most important structure? Here. This stomata over there. What is the stomata? Those are made up of our kidney-shaped guard cells. And there's the hole in the middle. That's your stoma. All right, and those are your guard cells. I'm just going to put... And those are able to open and close, all right? They are able to open or close. And in that opening and closing, what are we going to find? We are going to find that oxygen, all right, is made in the plant, can move out. And what does the plant need for photosynthesis? So there's oxygen. And what does the plant need? Carbon dioxide. What do you notice here? Do you notice lots of spaces? All right, that's ventilation in a way. Right, lots of open spaces. What do you think the cells here? All water vapor around there. Okay, so what is that water vapor? What is that? The gases dissolve in it. Okay, so plants, even though most of the time they photosynthesize, yes, they also need, they're living things. Cellular respiration needs to occur. They need to be able to use that oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Okay, next one. You should be familiar with the earthworm, the beginning of the year, all right, when you started off with animal biodiversity. Here is our earthworm. Now, what do we notice? There's no lungs. There's no lungs here. Okay, but what is there here? Two things. One, the skin over here is nice and moist. Oh, moist is what? Okay, sorry. Just want to do that. Okay, what is moist? All right, oh, me and the board. I absolutely hate this board, so there we go. Moist is water. So what's going to dissolve? Here we go. Oxygen comes in, and what does it do? It dissolves into the lining of the skin. Those of you who've ever picked up an earthworm, it's not all dry and flaky, it's all slimy and squishy and gross. Okay? It's all, the slime is the water, and it needs that because the oxygen dissolves into that diffusion. And here, if you notice these things, that the lovely color over here, those are blood vessels. Okay? So what's transported in them? Blood. So what does the blood do? It's going to transport the oxygen throughout the body. So if oxygen comes in, what is going to go out? Carbon dioxide. All right, carbon dioxide. Nice, simple diffusion in and out. Okay, now our next organism you need to have a little bit about is our locust. Okay, I'm not particularly fond of locusts because they make me eek, all right? They crunch when you stand on them, so they're not my favorite friend. If we have a look at the locust, I need you to think grasshopper. Not all squishy, actually quite the opposite. It's got a hard exoskeleton. Remember when you did the skeleton, all right, in grade 10? The hard outer covering. Now that hard outer covering means that oxygen can't come into, all right? It cannot come into the body. So we're going to need to have special organs for breathing, all right? And if you have a look over here, all right, the air comes in. Let's go over there. All right, oh, me and my pens. Okay, let me try and get another color. Here's the body of the insect. There we go. Oxygen comes in, and there's a little hole. If we look at the body, those of you next time you see one, instead of crushing it, all right, have a look, you'll see little holes on the side. Those are spiracles, right? And those spiracles allow oxygen to come in. Oxygen travels right down tubes, and those tubes get even smaller and smaller into tracheoles, right? And those tracheoles take the oxygen, and it gets diffused throughout the insect's body. Okay, are we?
Time for an ad?
I feel water coming.
Just need to, just a little bit.
Getting my teaching voice back.
No problem. Okay, well, we're going to take an ad break. And in the previous show, I asked the grade 10s if they knew what tomorrow is. So I want to challenge you, grade 11s. And do you guys know what tomorrow is? We'll answer that right after the break. Welcome back, grade 11. So, before we took an ad break, I asked you what tomorrow is. So, to put you out of your misery, I'm going to ask Cheryl, what is tomorrow? Do you know what tomorrow is?
It's Thursday.
Damn. I got the same answer from Aslam, and I was like, oh, say it. No one wants to tell me.
It's a very special day. It's Mandela Day
tomorrow.
Yes.
So I hope all you mindsetters sitting in front of your TV right now know that for 67 minutes you must do something good. So even if it's, like I said, picking up a piece of paper, walking your granny down to the shop, anything you want to do, 67 minutes, please. That's what Nelson Mandela stands for, and he's my daddy because I was born in 94. So it's quite weird to see, but I'm really, really glad that tomorrow we get to celebrate his 95th birthday. But enough about that. There is a link on the Facebook page for Nelson Mandela on the page, so it's facebook.com/Learn Extra. Don't forget, go look on the page, go look what it's about. But instead of me rambling and carrying on, I'm going to leave you to Cheryl and our Gaseous Exchange.
Whenever she talks about a birthday, I feel so old because 1994.
At least you're not 95, though.
No. I think I was at varsity there. I think I could still be old enough to be your mother.
And I was born. Death.
Guys, thank you so much for your questions on Facebook. There are a few of you. I hope I gave Megan the answer. I hope that she's able to.
I'm really trying.
to answer your questions. She got a little bit confused when one of you asked about the dorsal vessel. All right. You don't really need to go into too much detail because I think dorsal. She was just lost.
I was like, what is dorsal?
when we look at the earthworm, here we go. Dorsal means top. So if we have a look at I'm going to draw it here.
It's like a dorsal.
John came and gave me a new pen because he told me I have to get over my fear of this board. But
it's like a dorsal fin in a fish.
Precisely.
There we go. Now it makes sense.
Now you make sense.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Okay. There we go. If I was to draw the earthworm, all right, there's the surface of the body. Imagine, all right, there's the vessel right underneath it. Dorsal means on top. So when the oxygen comes into the skin there, right at the top. Remember what I said? Good transport system. Yes, there we've got it. Oxygen comes in, it's moist, it's thin, and wham bang, what's straight underneath that skin? There we have, we're going to have the blood vessels. We've got our transport system. Okay, so go back to those tick boxes that we've got. I'm not going to go into this for too much detail because I still want to get into I speak too much, I think. We need to get into the actual structure of the human gaseous exchange system. I have to do one more before we go on, and most of you should be familiar, right, with the fish. This is the first organism now that we've looked at that lives in water. It is aquatic. So drying out is not actually going to be as much of a problem as the rest of them are. Those of you, okay, again, if it lives in water, it's not going to have lungs because if water falls in lungs, it's going to drown. So it has special gaseous exchange systems. But if I were to draw a gill with a gill filament, I draw it over here. This is just a simple one. And look what I draw. Okay. I draw that. And as soon as you see those waves, what are you thinking? A large surface area. Right? Wasn't it 0.1? And if you look at the color, right, if you have to color it properly, those of you who've been fishing and you like to, right, clean your own fish, this is red. It is, let me see if I can find red. No, I'm going to get an orange as close as I can get. Filled with blood vessels. Filled with blood. Okay? What was one of my requirements? Transport system. So water is going to rush, water is going to rush over, all right, the gills, and what's going to happen? Oxygen in the water. Going to move into the gills, nice large surface area. Don't have to worry about it being moist. The fish lives in water, all right? And what's going to be there? There we go, blood vessels. Nice big transport system. Oxygen goes in, all right? Carbon dioxide goes out. Protection, a piculum, a nice little cover, all right? Covers the gills. So if we go back to our tick box, all of these things, all right, they qualify for my little requirements of a gaseous exchange. They're large, they're moist, they're thin, they're good ventilation, getting it in, they're protected, good transport system. Okay, now let's go on to us. There we go. Guys, the first thing that you do, most important thing, you need to draw it. Right? You don't need to go and draw all nice and complicated over there. A simple thing. Go and draw it. Draw all the tubes. Okay? There we go. Draw 2 lungs. Okay? And then a little thing under that. How's that? That, all right, anybody can do. And then you've got the picture of the structure of the lungs, all right, in your head. Now, when we look at the human gaseous or respiratory system, okay, what do you need to think about? Well, what do I need to do? Firstly, I need to get oxygen into my body. So I need to have air passages. Air needs to move in, right? Once it goes through the passages, where does it land up? My lungs. That's what they're there for. Okay? So I need to bring the air in, needs to be transported, move down the passages into my lungs. From my lungs, I then need to be able to transport it, right? My blood transports oxygen and carbon dioxide in different ways. What's the next thing I need to do? Those of you, all right, who have run very far, what happens after you've done a lot of exercise, right? You've got a lot of carbon dioxide, right? And you can't have that carbon dioxide. We have to get it out. So your body needs to do something special to try and get the levels of carbon dioxide lower again. Homeostasis. So bear that in mind. Passages, all right, then the lungs, then transport, and then homeostasis. How do we control our breathing? Okay, when we breathe in, air is going to come through our nostrils over here. Now, if you have a look, behind your nose, believe it or not, are 3 bones, turbinate bones. Okay, what do we see here? Nice, large surface area. I breathe in, and there's a whole lot of space behind there that the oxygen can go in. And don't pick your nose now, but in private, if you kind of like just feel around the area of your nostril, what are you going to find? It's going to be moist, okay? Mucus. You're not allowed to call it snot, all right? But it's a mucus. And that's, why do you think you've got mucus in your nose? Because the oxygen needs to dissolve in. Okay, what else do we have in our nose? Hairs. Some men, a little bit more than others, all right? And what are those hairs there for? To trap the dust. If we get solid particles, all right, into our lungs, it causes an irritation. So we can be coughing, all right, it can form like a build-up sometimes, and if the particles are really small, unfortunately it can cause cancers, etc. So we don't want those little fine particles to go and cause an irritation. So the oxygen's dissolved, the little hairs try and trap the dust, okay, and then what do we need to do? We need to warm, right? We need to warm the blood. And those of you who've had a nosebleed, all right, all around here, there are blood vessels. And our body is warm, 36 degrees, okay? So when the air comes in, the blood warms up the air. So when it goes down to the body, okay, it is now nice and warm. So as I said, now it's going to go down the passages, right? The passages. So it goes in through our nose, our nostrils, goes down. Where does our nasal cavity end? The back of our throat. What do we call our throat? Our pharynx, okay? The pharynx, then as we go down, goes over the larynx, and it's the air on your voice box that's making sound, and then we get to the passages. Okay, let's have a look here. Your first air passage is your trachea. It's your trachea. It's the one that you can feel, all right? If you touch over here, you can feel your trachea. That is going to take the air downwards. You'll see over here, this is obviously what it looks like in real life, a little tube, okay? And now, this is where your grade 10 syllabus is going to come back, and you're going to have flashbacks of grade 10, which some of you don't always like. Can you remember? Okay, mammalian tissue. Most of you probably battled a bit with it. What do we find? Ciliated columnar epithelium. Remember, epithelium lines the tract. So what does the ciliated columnar epithelium do? Here's the cilia on top over here that form a wave, all right, that makes sure the air goes down. It also, any kind of phlegm, it will push up. And what does the mucus, here's the goblet cell, it makes the mucus. Because what does oxygen do? It dissolves in the mucus. Now remember, this is an air passage. It needs to get the air down to the lungs. So it needs to have strengthening, all right? It needs to have a strengthening tissue. You'll see over here, all right? All of these are cartilage. And again, you did it, all right, in grade 10. But the cartilage doesn't go all the way around, okay? It's C-shaped. It's like this. So, because at the back of it is your esophagus, okay? It's when you swallow. So what happens is you can't breathe and swallow at the same time, because otherwise all the food would go down your lungs, right? The little epiglottis stops it, and then you will choke. So what do you want? Here is your breathing. But when you swallow, what does your esophagus do? It steals some of the space. All right, so here's my C, goes like that, around. But when I swallow, what do sometimes I don't chew so well, you know, if you swallow that Brussels sprout whole, for example, right, and it goes all the way, you don't want it to get stuck if it was solid. So the C, as it goes down, it can steal a little bit of the trachea's space. All right, so that makes it the C-shaped rather than the O. Okay, so the trachea, special lining, ciliated columnar epithelium, and special mammalian tissue, the cartilage, right, which is going to keep it open. If we go from here, all right, oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, I need to go back one. There. Okay, terms important. From the trachea, we are going to then lead off two ways. So we go to the different color pen. Let's go to yellow. All right. I have two lungs, don't I? So if I have two lungs, I need to take, all right, I need to take the air to each of those lungs. So the trachea, all right, now branches. Those branches are called bronchus. 1 bronchus, 2 bronchi. All right, bronchus is singular, right? Bronchi is plural. So those of you who've had bronchitis, all right, what's happened over here is these tubes are filled with phlegm. You've probably got some bacteria or viral infection, and it's infected your bronchi, right? And that is how you get bronchitis. Now remember, you need to cough it out because it's irritating. Your lungs don't want it there. But these are the big ones. These are like the superhighways. We need to go to the very, very, very ends of our lungs. So what does this do? Look here. It needs to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So from here, it's like a tree, smaller. Those are bronchioli. Sometimes some people spell it with an I. It's fine. Bronchioli. What are bronchioli? Small bronchioles. Now here, the cartilaginous rings here can be a circle because you're not swallowing your food. Eventually, they get thinner and thinner and thinner, all right, until they don't need any openings because they are so small. So again, it's like going off the highway. You take another road, you go, and the roads get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, trachea to the bronchi. The bronchi branch into smaller areas called the bronchioli, and the bronchioli then into smaller ones, all right, called that form the alveoli at the end. Okay, which brings us onto our lungs. There we go. We have 2 of them, right, a right and a left side, and the right side is slightly larger than the left side. The reason being, if I were to put an organ over here, okay, there's my heart. My heart takes up a little bit of space, okay, so that is why the left lung is slightly smaller than the right. What is the lung going to do? The lung is made up of the tissue. It's spongy, all right. If you were to look at the lining around the lung, believe it or not, the lung has got a little lining around it called the pleura. All right, it's a thin line. Okay, James says my colors are terrible. Okay, there we go. The in between here, there's light fluid. All right, and that is called the pleural fluid. And that's important because what do you do when you breathe? Your lungs expand, inflate, deflate, expand, deflate. So they move. So when they move, all right, friction can occur. So you don't want to have friction, right? So when the breathing in and the breathing out, if you've got a little bit of moisture around, it stops friction. And remember what I said, oxygen must go into, all right, must dissolve in water. Are we still busy, or is it time for a break?
No,
or are we still
whatever.
going on?
What do you feel like?
No, let's just finish this section.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, very jarring that you definitely need to know. That is the alveoli. Okay, the lung ends as all those tubes end. Here we go. Sorry, my bronchioli. All right, ends in these alveolar sacs. Now remember, I talked about a large surface area. That could be an alveoli, or I can do this. Okay, which has got the largest surface area? Here we go. All right, guys, your lungs, all right, are 40 times, all right, the surface area than your whole body. So in other words, if I would take your lungs and I were to lay it all out, they would cover a netball field, all right? That is huge. That is the capacity that you have to take in the oxygen and to release the carbon dioxide. Okay, there you go, the alveoli. Now, when we get to it, what do we notice? Look here, one layer, thin. What's around the alveoli? Look at all the yellow and the blue. Blood vessels. All right, good transport system. What else do we notice? What do you think is going to be in the gap over there if I change the color? Water. All right, water, moist. So it's large, it's thin, it's moist. It's easy for oxygen to get in. Okay, So when we look again at the alveoli, we're going to look at gaseous exchange, all right? Please remember the alveoli, all of those parts, all right? Go to your checklist. I think, are we ready now?
Okay, well, when we come back from an ad break, mindsetters, I see you guys have very interesting questions, and I want to see if Cheryl can answer them. So keep posting now, and I'll talk to her about them during the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Mindsetters. I can see you guys are so eagerly posting on our page. Don't forget, facebook.com/learnextra. If you have any other questions, Cheryl and I will gladly answer them for you. But she has a lot to get through, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get through the rest of Gaseous Exchange.
We're on super drive now. We need to go through a bit quicker than Superman. All right, we've still got a bit to go through.
We'll hit it. It's cool.
Okay. We've just looked at the structure briefly. I'm going to look at inhalation, exhalation, and gaseous exchange. All right, so we're going to start off. I'm going to use the picture. There's a whole lot of words that go with it, but I just basically want you to listen. Remember, we talked about breathing, all right, and in the exam you can even sit and do it yourself, all right. When you're conscious of your breathing, breathing in, right, is bringing oxygen in. And now listen to the terms, okay? This is your thoracic cavity. Let me write it here. And what is your thoracic cavity? It's this. Okay? It's the area in which your lungs are found. That is your thoracic cavity. How can you get oxygen in? All right? What do you need to do? You need to make the space larger. Because if the space now is larger, all right, your lungs can then inflate, get bigger. All right, and when they can get bigger, air can move from the outside into that ventilation we spoke about, into the body. Okay, so now we need to look, how do I make my thoracic cavity, how do I make it bigger? Okay, the first thing that I need to do, my ribs are a problem. Okay, they are enclosing my lungs. I now need to make sure that the ribs give me space. In between the ribs, and those of you who like to eat ribs, meat, remember you are eating an animal's intercostal muscles. Okay? In between the ribs over here, these intercostal muscles, as I said. Those intercostal muscles, if they contract, right, the rib cage, your ribs, move down and they move out. So here, imagine those were my ribs. If I contract my intercostal muscles, they move down and they move out. And in moving down and out, what am I doing? What did I say I want to do? I want to create more space. Okay? So I've taken my rib cage from enclosing it and I'm giving it a little bit of room. Next thing that needs to happen, very important, your breathing muscle, your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is in that position. We call it dome-shaped. There it is. Okay? So what will it be doing? It will be taking up space. But if I were to take that dome shape, if I were to contract, and I were to push it down, so if I were to push my diaphragm down, so if it was like that, and then I push it down, so that it's almost like popping it out the other way, what have I done? Pushing it down, what have I created? I've created this space. So instead of saying the word space, let's talk properly. What have I done? I've created volume. I've increased the volume of my thoracic cavity. My lungs are expanding, all right? And because I'm not putting any pressure, I've got less pressure. I'm moving things out so that my lungs can stretch, so that they can move, all right? And when they expand, the air moves into, all right, into the lungs, into the air passages, and into the alveoli. The oxygen then gets in. It's into that very final stage of the very last part of the alveoli. Okay? But obviously, I need to get that carbon dioxide out. Okay? Now, when I breathed in, it was a very active process. It's far more, you need to do far more work breathing in than you do breathing out. Okay? So now, breathing out is the opposite. What do I want to do? When you think of breathing out, how many of you, I'm sure every single person has, you've blown up a balloon, and what have you done? You squashed it. That's exactly how it works. What have you done with your hands? You've taken them and you've pressed it. That's how I want to get the air out. Right? I don't want this large space anymore. I've breathed in the oxygen, and now what do I need to get out? I need to force the carbon dioxide out. So I basically now need to make that space, all right, in my thoracic cavity smaller. So I don't want it nice and big anymore. I want everything to come back in again. Okay? So what happens? My external intercostal muscles, they don't contract, they relax. What happens to my ribs? What do they do again? They come down and in. So what do they start doing? Squashing my lungs. Okay? What happens to my diaphragm? It relaxes. What does it do? It goes back to the dome shape. It presses up against the lungs. So what happens? My volume, my space decreases. All right? And when I'm pushing it, it's pushing against the lungs. Remember that balloon? So when I push it, what does it do? It forces air out. Lot less work. And we call that a passive process. Okay? Inhalation. So if you learn inhalation, always think of the opposite for exhalation. All right? Because they have the opposite effect. Now let us look at gaseous exchange. Okay? So quickly here, guys, you need to realize that when it comes to inhalation and exhalation, when you inhale, you have lots of oxygen, and when you exhale, you will have lots of carbon dioxide. Okay, but I want to get to the gaseous exchange quickly. All right, have a look. Gaseous exchange occurs at 2 levels. All right, firstly, number 1, it occurs in the lungs. So here we've got, look at this diagram over here. Here's the alveoli. This is a nice simple one that I gave you over here, but you need to be able to understand what's happening. Okay, here's my alveoli. All right, one little bulb of it. Where does oxygen come in? Comes in via the air passages and comes into the lungs. Now, my alveoli is 1 layer thick. Let's go back, time travel to grade 10, and most of you can't remember. Grade 10, mammalian tissue. What epithelial tissue lined the lungs? Squamous epithelium. Single thin layer of cells. Remember, those were the flat ones, all right, that were joined together that look like tiles. Okay, so my oxygen is in here. What is surrounding my alveoli? A blood vessel. Right, let me see if I can change. Let's go to orange. There we go. Blood. Okay, there we go. Now, in my blood vessel, it's a capillary. All right, and when you did the transport system, again, in grade 10, and which Aslam is going to be doing with you. Now, the capillary is 1 layer thick of squamous epithelium called endothelium. It's thin, all right? One of the requirements for a gaseous exchange. So my oxygen comes in. Here we go. Oxygen is in the lungs. There's more oxygen in the lungs than there is in the blood. We have what is called a diffusion gradient. In other words, high, low. Okay? If you're at the top of the hill, it's very easy for me just to push you, and you're going to roll down quite easily. Okay? Nice. Concentration gradient. I don't have to push you up and push you up. You're just going to roll. That's what we want. So oxygen moves out of the alveoli into the blood. Okay? What is present in the blood? Water, for one. So some of the oxygen dissolves in the blood plasma. But red blood cells in the blood have got a pigment called hemoglobin. And that hemoglobin is the oxygen taxi. All right? It carries oxygen. So when the oxygen comes in, it hooks onto the red blood cell, and it now forms what we call oxyhemoglobin. It's going to be up there just now. I'm just going to trying to do everything into one. Now, coming back, the blood over here has come back from the cells, and it is rich, let's choose another color, green. It is rich in carbon dioxide. The cells have respired, they've given carbon dioxide. Okay? Where do I have? I have lots of carbon dioxide in the blood, little bit of carbon dioxide in the alveoles. What do I have? Diffusion gradient. So where does carbon dioxide move? From the blood to the alveoli. Look at my arrows. One going from the alveoli to the blood, one going from the blood to the alveoli. That is gaseous exchange. Oxygen into the body, carbon dioxide out. Okay, now the oxygen is in the body. It's traveling in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Where is it going? It needs to get to the cells. That's where we're on our way, all right, to the cells. Here we arrive. Artery, all right, with oxygen gets smaller and smaller. What do we find over here? I'm going to go back to my pink. My capillaries. How many layer thick? 1. All right, endothelium. Going to use the blue. What is all of this around here? Water. It's tissue fluid. Tissue fluid is water. All right, now let's start with the oxygen. Okay, my oxygen. Lots of oxygen in the blood vessel. Little bit of oxygen in my cell. What's that word we've got? Concentration gradient. Oxygen moves from a high to a low. In the meantime, we're going to back to the green. My cells have undergone cellular respiration. Lots and lots of carbon dioxide in the cells, little bit in the blood. What do I have again? Concentration gradient. So where does the carbon dioxide go? It moves in the blood. So what have we done? Exchanged. Okay? When carbon dioxide gets into the blood, there we go. You see there's your oxyhemoglobin. I love this. I have to show you this. I love this. All right. When carbon dioxide gets into the blood, it can be transported 3 ways. Either dissolved, right? I love this word as well. It's like always impress your friends. Or it combines with hemoglobin. How's that for a really long word? Can you say it, Megan? No. All right. Carbaminohemoglobin. Okay. But those of you who have a little bit of a science background, well, most of the time it is carried. Carbon dioxide, when it meets with water, can turn into an acid. That's why we need to get it out of the body. But we have all these buffers. So every damn buffering. Really cool. We have these buffers to make sure that it doesn't turn acidic, and it's transported as bicarbonate ions. Okay. All right. I think we're almost there. I'm waiting for James to whisper. Oh, are we over?
No, he says it.
Oh, is it 40 seconds? All right.
Well,
is it your turn
no,
now?
go.
I'm finished.
I think
almost
it's finished.
We're going to see if we can speed talk.
I think
all
you have
right.
like 30 seconds.
Guys, just remember, if you exercise a lot, if you're speaking a lot, all right, what happens after you've exercised? All of a sudden, all this carbon dioxide is in your body, and you need to get rid of it. Okay, the brain picks up. There's little receptors in your blood, picks up. Hey, too much carbon dioxide. We need to get rid of it. What do you guys start to do? Breathing deeply. All right, the deeper you breathe, the more oxygen you can get. And what does your heart start to do? It starts to beat fast. The faster it beats, you can get all the oxygen to the rest of the body. Ta-da!
Okay, well done. Well, thank you, Grade 11s. I really hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, Macmillan, for proudly sponsoring our Grade 11 show. Milky, I hope you're still watching, and good evening.